It is 2 in the morning at a quiet marina on the Florida coast, and a man you have never seen steps aboard a center console that does not belong to him. He knows this exact model, its ignition, its alarm panel, because he studied the file on it for days. Within minutes, the alarm is silenced, the engines are running without a key, and the boat is easing out of its slip into open water before the owner has any idea it is gone. This is not a theft. This is a repossession. And that boat is about to travel through one of 4 very different channels that decide whether the bargain listing you eventually see online is the deal of a lifetime or a boat that will bankrupt you in repairs. Let us follow it down. It starts the moment the financing behind that boat collapses. Saltwater boats over 5 net tons can be documented with the US Coast Guard, and when a bank finances one, it typically records what is called a preferred ship mortgage under the Ship Mortgage Act of 1920. That mortgage gets filed with the National Vessel Documentation Center and outranks nearly every other claim against the boat except crew wages, existing repair liens, and salvage claims. The moment an owner stops paying, that mortgage becomes the trigger for one of 2 very different recovery machines. And which one comes for the boat depends entirely on who is owed money. The first is the public legal route, and it usually starts with the people closest to the boat: an unpaid marina, a repair yard still owed money, a captain whose wages stopped coming. Under maritime law, these creditors can invoke what is called a maritime lien, and it is one of the strangest tools in the entire legal system. The lien attaches to the vessel itself, not the owner, and it follows the boat even if it gets sold to someone completely innocent. To enforce it, a creditor goes to federal court and requests a warrant, and the United States Marshals Service physically seizes the boat under what is called an in rem arrest, meaning the lawsuit is technically filed against the boat itself rather than a person. Once arrested, a court-appointed custodian takes control, and every dollar spent guarding, dockage, and insurance during that legal fight gets paid first out of the eventual sale, ahead of the creditors who started the whole process and ahead of the bank. The second machine is quieter and belongs to the lender. When an owner defaults on the preferred ship mortgage itself, the bank frequently skips court entirely and uses what the law calls self-help repossession. As long as the recovery agent does not breach the peace, meaning no forced entry and no confrontation, banks are legally allowed to simply retrieve their collateral. That is exactly what the man in the marina at 2 in the morning was doing. And if the eventual sale brings in less than what was owed, the original owner is often still on the hook for the difference, a bill known as the deficiency balance. You can lose the boat and still owe money on it. Before any of that happens though, the boat has to be found, and this is where saltwater boats present their own unique problem. A sport fisher or a fast center console can run for days on relatively little fuel and cross state lines or international waters in a single overnight trip. Owners who sense a repossession coming sometimes do exactly this, and their first move is almost always to shut off the automatic identification system that vessels broadcast for collision avoidance. Investigators have learned to read the pattern anyway. A boat that goes dark right at a state line and reappears weeks later somewhere else tells its own story. Recovery agencies increasingly rely on skip tracing, cross-referencing marina logs, insurance filings, and license plate recognition networks near boat ramps and marinas, because a repo agent who finds the truck in the parking lot has usually found the boat floating right next to it. If you are still with me, hit subscribe, because the part where these boats actually land is where this gets interesting. Once a seized saltwater boat is secured, it flows into one of 4 channels, and the channel tells you almost everything about whether the eventual listing is safe or a trap. The first and cleanest channel is the admiralty court auction. When a federal court orders a sale to satisfy a maritime lien, that sale wipes the boat's title completely clean. Every mortgage, every lien, every hidden debt gets erased, and the buyer walks away with an unchallengeable title recognized everywhere. Courts protect the integrity of these sales fiercely, because if buyers ever stop trusting them, the value of every seized boat sold this way would collapse with it. The second channel belongs to the government, and it is bigger than most people realize. National Liquidators, founded in 1988 in Fort Lauderdale as a small sealed bid auction company, became the only Resolution Trust Corporation approved marine remarketing contractor during the savings and loan crisis of 1990, and has since handled more than 40,000 cases. Today, the company is a registered federal vendor that seizes, stores, and auctions vessels for the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, including the DEA, the FBI, the ICE, Border Patrol, and the US Marshals Service. Boats confiscated in criminal cases, drug trafficking, money laundering, tax fraud, flow through exactly this kind of channel, alongside routine bank repossessions, all sold through a weekly sealed bid process where every bidder submits blind and the highest offer wins. The third channel is where saltwater boats diverge sharply from almost any other type of vessel. Because saltwater boats live concentrated along the Gulf Coast, the Florida coastline, and the Carolinas, which means they live directly in the path of hurricanes. When a storm hits, insurance companies frequently declare boats a total constructive loss, meaning the estimated repair cost runs 75 to 80% or more of the insured value. Once that happens, the owner is typically paid out in full, though many policies allow the owner to buy the wreck back from the insurer at its salvage value if they want to attempt their own repair. If the owner declines, the insurer takes legal ownership of the wreck and hands it to a liquidator to recover whatever value remains. 3 national liquidators routinely work directly with the Boat US catastrophe team after major storms to move this inventory, transporting boats to storage yards, marketing them, and issuing clear title to the eventual buyer. Florida does not issue traditional salvage titles the way most states title cars. Instead, it uses what the law calls a branded title, a permanent designation that follows the boat's title history and discloses the damage to every future buyer, whether the vessel is later state titled or federally documented. These auctions can look like extraordinary deals, sometimes opening at a few $1,000s for a boat that was worth 10 times that before the storm, but the risk is real and well documented by marine surveyors. Submersion in saltwater is frequently described as close to a death sentence for wiring, connections, and switches. Corrosion sets in at every connection point within months, and engines that ingested saltwater are generally safest to plan on replacing entirely rather than repairing, since damage to bearings and internal components is rarely visible until the engine is already running. The fourth channel is the quiet one, the one most repossessed saltwater boats actually flow through without ever hitting a public auction. It is ordinary brokerage. National Liquidators itself operates a full brokerage arm alongside its auction business specifically for this purpose, and the vast majority of boats coming off finance defaults get absorbed back into the ordinary used boat market this way, sold with a clear title and none of the uncertainty of an as-is auction listing. Now, to the fate of the boat nobody wants anymore, the one too old, too damaged, or too worthless to save. This has quietly been one of the ugliest problems in all of boating because a fiberglass hull is a thermoset plastic. It does not melt down, and it is extremely difficult and expensive to recycle by conventional means. The National Marine Manufacturers Association estimates that roughly 2 to 3% of the entire U.S. recreational fleet reaches the end of its useful life every year, something in the range of 200,000 boats, and separate estimates put storm losses alone as high as 65,000 vessels in a single bad year. For decades, the answer was simple abandonment in marshland, illegal scuttling until that was banned for shedding microplastics into the water, or landfill burial that will effectively never break down. A real solution is finally being tested, and it started in Rhode Island. In 2018, the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association, working with Rhode Island Sea Grant, launched a pilot program that shreds derelict fiberglass hulls at a processing facility in Johnston, Rhode Island, reducing the material down to roughly 2-inch fragments. Those fragments get shipped to a cement manufacturer in Holly Hill, South Carolina, where the resin in the fiberglass burns as fuel for the kiln, and the glass fibers themselves melt directly into the cement mixture, replacing raw minerals that would otherwise need to be mined. Over the life of the pilot, the program processed about 80 short tons of fiberglass this way, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration awarded the program a grant to expand the model into Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, and Washington State. It is worth being honest that this remains a pilot program rather than a fully built national network, and funding gaps have paused parts of it at different points. But it is the proven working answer to a problem the industry did not have a real solution for until very recently. So think back to that man stepping aboard in the dark. That single saltwater boat, once someone's pride, gets hunted by AIS gaps and license plate networks, arrested by federal marshals, or quietly reclaimed by a repo agent who never breaks the peace, and funneled into one of 4 channels: an unimpeachable court auction, a government seizure sale, a storm total loss liquidation, or a quiet brokerage resale. If it is truly finished, it may end up as the concrete in a building instead of a wreck in a marsh. A seized saltwater boat never really disappears. The price tag tells you almost nothing. The channel it came through tells you almost everything, and now you know exactly what to ask before you ever place a bid.